Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me?
No, it's just real loud, and I can't.
I sold Amazon when it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. Mr. Cris Duncan, or wait, should I say Mr. President? Because in all honesty, you're the new TPPA president. That's Texas Professional Photographers Association, for those who do not know. Introduce yourself to me now with that out of the way and talk a little bit about that right from the get-go.
Okay. Well, I'm President Cris Duncan.
Right.
I'm Cris Duncan. Me and my wife, Deanna, have had CJ Duncan Photography in Lubbock, Texas for almost 20 years now. Wow. And it's been kind of our sole source of income since 2008. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we do. So I'm an educator, photographer. I like to be involved in associations and help others. So
why?
That's because people help me. I was lost in the wilderness, Jed. We both were. And we go to our local camera shop. We hear about, I think we got a magazine or something that had Texas School in it, or Imaging USA. And we're like, what are these?
What are these places with people that do this stuff too?
Right. And oddly enough, we kind of started our business getting our marketing in the early 2000s, going to like craft fairs and women's shows and church shows and, that kind of stuff, holiday extravaganzas. And so Dan was at like a different church auditorium every weekend for a $25 booth, being in front of people.
Yep.
And we had one big event. It's called Holiday Happening. And this guy walks up to us, kind of goes, "Hey, I'm Don. You ever heard of Texas School?"
Really?
We're like, no. Yeah.
Don just happened to be there?
He was there with his wife. It's kind of funny because like 7 years later, he asked us to teach at Texas School. And he was like, "You're the first one that told us about Texas School."
Right.
And invited us to be a student. So, if he had even just said, "Hey, I'm Don, and there's this great place where you can learn," I don't know if I would be where I am today, So
tell me, so you think a little bit about what things were like for you guys before things like Texas School and anything associated with PPA or other local guilds or groups or whatever you guys did, kind of a before and after, right? What's the very first thing that comes to your mind when you think about the difference between what life was like before and what your business was like before and what things were like afterwards?
I had no idea what I didn't know.
Yep.
I had no idea what I didn't know.
Yeah.
For real.
Because we don't know what we don't know, of course.
Right. We didn't know we weren't charging appropriately. We didn't know that we weren't lighting appropriately. We didn't know that our composition sucked. Well,
so I mean,
and I think, and I mentioned this to you last time, and I'm more focused on where people go than where they start. And I think I saw that in Don.
Yeah.
I think I saw that in Don when he probably saw some of our stuff and said, this guy's trying to make a go of it. I shouldn't care where he is now, but I know I can get him to a place if I can get him involved. And so that's and there's still stuff I don't know, right?
But, of course. But don't you think, because one of the things we could talk about is education in general, right? And through things like TPPA and PPA on a larger scale, of course, or Texas School, just different options that people have. Don't you think that that's the biggest thing that kind of happens, is that you start to discover what it was that you didn't know to begin with? And then isn't that, or can't that be really overwhelming and terrifying at the beginning?
It can. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I see it more probably now as an educator when I have someone in, when we're teaching.
You watch it happen. You watch it happen to them.
Yeah, you can see that look on their face. But it's ever so rewarding when you see them go, now now I get it. And that's such a catalyst for so many people. And I don't think the chasm is that big between not knowing anything and knowing enough to really start to snowball. I don't think that's that big of a chasm, but you have to help people across it. If you leave them out there, there's just, I think too many of them get frustrated and lost and don't even pursue what maybe they're meant to pursue.
And so in all honesty, one of your big motivators is that people did that for you. Absolutely.
And
you're aware of the difference that it made in your life and your business. And so now you're involved and well, at this point, as far as TPPA is concerned, you're the top dog for this year.
Well, I have the title. Yes. Yeah.
What does that look like? What does that mean for you? And then in 2021, how do you balance that with everything else that, doesn't go away?
Well, we're kind of only 21 days into it.
I know it.
Yeah.
So you better be ready.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, and I'm sure some of your listeners are involved, either local affiliate or state, or have been or want to be. The good thing is you don't just say, hey, I want to help, and then you're president. You work through maybe a volunteer role or a committee chair or serve on this position on the board, and you kind of work up to it. So I knew I would be president unless people just got ticked off and just threw me out for the past 3 years. So there's been some pre-planning. Okay, this is what we do now. COVID kind of threw a wrecking ball in some of that. But our purpose is to help photographers get to where they want to go, to make them better than before, to foster a community of growth and education and support. And so as long as we know that's our umbrella that governs us, some of the minutia of the day gets easier. It makes those decisions. Should we do this or not do this? Well, does it help people grow? Does it help foster community? It doesn't? Okay, we're not going to do that. So that's nothing that's any different in your business. You say this is kind of the core and the culture of our business. If this opportunity doesn't work with that, we probably don't need that job or that opportunity.
So you take that same intentionality that you have as a business person into the education realm as well, and apply some of the same thought processes and principles.
Yeah, I think so. That's really the experience. That's the experience I had coming in. I didn't have experience as, any type of CEO or corporate leader or anything. I just had just a business leader,
Right.
And
right.
Some decisions are good and some aren't, and you try to repeat the ones that were and not repeat the ones that weren't as good, And I think as an association, it's easy to say, this is a good idea. Let's try this. Oh, this is a good idea. Let's try this. And before too long, you're splintered into so many things. Nobody knows what your association, nobody knows what you offer. And the waters are muddied. And this one might have been a good idea, but it costs too much. And this one costs. And so all of that comes to, and that's years of experience from other people that have done it before, planning ahead, like we talked about for, several years that I've been involved in the leadership there. And I don't think it's any different in your business. You could take this job, but does it really fit with what you want to do?
Sure.
And I think we have to do that as educators and as leaders in the industry and in the association.
When I think about education, though, these days, we've both been doing this for about 20 years, give or take. And things were way different in that realm 20 years ago than they are now. And everybody knows that, but sell me a bit, take some time and sell me a bit on things like attending Texas school or going to TPPA events or other, local events or other people's state events and really being involved, as opposed to merely hunting and pecking on YouTube and or just being members of different Facebook groups to try to be educated. Sell me on being involved in these various guilds and associations and Texas school, things of that nature.
I think number one on all of those is accountability and personal support, personal relationship and support. You can get a lot of good. Here's how I sum it up, Jed. Information is free. You can get that anywhere. You can get it by listening to your podcast. You can get it by going to YouTube. You can read a magazine article. That's free, right? That information's out there. Education or understanding that information, that takes a little bit of sacrifice. That takes some effort. And that's going to Texas School, and that's going to Imaging USA and your local affiliate. And you can't get to wisdom unless you have that middle part. And I think people want wisdom on how do I apply this to my business? How do I take this technique or this business strategy or this scenario and make it work for me? And that takes the wisdom part, but you can't get to the wisdom if you don't have that second one, which is the education. And I don't think you get education on DIY. You get some knowledge and some information, but you don't get that deep down knowledge of knowing what it is. And I like to use the example of, I know my car needs gas and oil and certain other fluids, but if it breaks down, I don't understand any of how it works.
Right.
And to me, YouTube is the facts. That's the knowledge. Oh, I know I need light and this thing and that and whatever. But at Texas School, you get that accountability. I think you get that deeper knowledge because you're almost put in a position like, okay, here's kind of what we've shown you to do, or some techniques to think about. Let's go do it. And we're going to come back here in an hour and we're going to see how well you did. And if you places you struggled, we're going to find out where you struggled, and we're going to help bring that out of you to make that less frustrating and more confident and more predictable next time. And whether that's with lighting or with posing or with business, that's what you get. And
well, and what I've always found is at the schools in particular, because they are so, you got 4, 5, 6 days of some pretty intense learning and application. But the big thing that I've found, in Texas School in particular has always been like this for us, is that the networking and the relationships, like you don't know what's going to happen in those two areas specifically beforehand. But retrospectively, you can look back, and I mean, some people can look back and say, I've been friends with that person for 18 years and we met at Texas School 04, right? And then you realize how much you've gotten from that relationship, and it can just be mind-boggling how much came out of that relationship solely because you made the effort at one point to attend and to really dive in and immerse yourself and be open to the networking parts and the relational pieces that transcend all of that stuff and last maybe forever.
Absolutely. And I think what it does is it lets you know that you're not alone and you're not the only person that's going through what you're going through. Yep. And it doesn't mean, I use YouTube as a resource all the time, or information from your show. I get a tip up from hearing somebody say what they do.
Yeah.
But knowing that I'm not the only person that's gone through this, or that I've struggled with this, or that, man, they've got the exact same studio business as me. Maybe we can learn from each other. Right. And you'll learn as much sitting around the dinner table than you might from your instructor the previous 2 hours, right? Yes. And so I think that if you feel isolated, like I'm the only one that's in this spot, and I'm the only one that can get me out of this spot, that's the worst place to be. You surround yourself with like-minded people, because I don't know about other professions. I've had some other jobs, but I didn't get involved in the networking aspect of those jobs. It was just a paycheck. Mm-hmm. But I know photographers, they talk about work and photography even when they're not doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if accountants get together and say, so how was that W-2 you did last week, Bob? That we're talking about, how was that session you had last?
I think by and large, it's not. Yeah. We're talking about two very, very different things. Do this, then what's it going to look like this year? I'm not going to hold you to this, and this isn't written in stone, but if part of the great piece of it is meeting in person, what are your hopes or your thoughts, or maybe even your concrete plans? I don't know if they even exist right now for Texas School this year.
We do. We've already had registration on January 3rd. Right. We had several people roll over their registration from last year to this year. We're already up to, I want to say, close to 800 students registered at this point.
Yeah.
And that's under the umbrella of COVID. People knew, last year when they registered, they didn't know COVID was here. Now they know it's here.
Right.
And so I think that's a good indicator that people are ready for this. They're craving to get back to seeing their people. Of course, we're gonna do it as safe as we can, cover all the the regulations that we have,
Sure.
social distancing. If we need to wear a mask in those situations, we'll wear a mask. But we're going full steam ahead right now. That it's a live event.
What are the dates? April.
April 25th through May 1st. I should have had that written down. It's a Sunday through a Friday. It may be the 25th through the 30th. I think maybe.
Yeah. But it's at the end. It's at the end of April, so there's even a few more months at this point. Right now, we're towards the end of January, and so you're rolling forward, and this is going to happen. Absolutely.
I mean, like you said, nothing's written in stone, and if we learned anything from last year, is anything can change in the blink of an eye. But we feel confident based on people want to be there, knowing that COVID is in the world now, that they're still wanting to sign up and register and pick their classes. So, we're moving ahead like we're having a live event.
Talk to me now a little bit about image competition, because, and I'm going to present it this way again. I want you to convince me of the worth and importance, right, of image competition. So I'm kind of being a devil's advocate, but I think one of the critiques that I hear the most in the limited discussions that I have about image comp in particular is that it's antiquated or unnecessary. Come at me with those, against those critiques, and give me an apology of sorts, like a defense of sorts for the importance of image competition.
I think
I know I'm giving it to you straight.
Yeah, just slamming it to me, right? Glad we're not stuck in an elevator again right now. I think image competition it's hard to explain. I could explain the technique and what it is and how to enter, but it's kind of one of those things when you were starting dating and your parents, you'd say, how do I know when I found the one? You're like, you're just going to know.
Oh.
How do you know? And it's like, you're just going to know. I think image competition is one of those things that I think when it's time to do it. I think early on in our career or our photography, like I said, that chasm's not too great. Mm-hmm. To get to where you don't know a whole lot to where you can really start making some decent images, and you can probably start selling some of them.
Yep.
But you're going along, and pretty soon you hit a point. You're at this precipice.
Yeah.
And you either decide, okay, at this point, am I going to go to the next level, or am I going to try to ride this as long as I can? But pretty soon that precipice ends and you fall.
Okay.
And I think image competition is one of those things that you're like, there's something else for me to learn. There's something else that I can get better at. And it's only going to be by me doing the work. Am I going to get there? And then hearing encouraging, positive feedback from someone that probably knows more than me, not in an arrogant sense, just they've traveled that road farther. Yep. They've been down that path farther, and they can tell you, hey, there's a river crossing here and there's this here. And they can give you those small little refinements. Mm-hmm. And then you see yourself 5 years later and like, holy smokes, I can't believe where I've come.
Right.
And I think if you enter image competition to get an award, if you enter it because you think you can market better, if you enter it because you want a medallion, if you enter it because you want initials by your name, those are all great goals. And I encourage people to set goals. Mm-hmm. But if you enter it saying, I want to make what I do better, then that's the work you enter. If you want to be the best headshot photographer, Jed, then you start entering headshots. I guarantee your headshots will be the best in the country.
Right.
Because
you're going to learn how to get better.
That's right. Because it's going to fine tune you on what they see right in front of them.
What's image? Go ahead.
Let's say to me, it's like they get to see that one image. It's a deep dive and to say, how can this image improve? Not your body of work, not your whole,
Right.
but how can this image improve? Is it a tilt of the head? Is it a color change? Is it a background change? Is it a lighting dip? Whatever it is, that's precision information. It's not just,
it's also
learn a little bit more about lighting.
It's also another one of those things that you don't know what you don't know either, right? I mean,
Yes.
one of the things that you find out in image competition is that there could be a tremendous amount of information or technique that you're not aware of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I equate it to this, and I like to do analogies that take us out of our industry or out of our art form. And I think last time I talked about cooking a little bit, but
You did?
I wanted to learn guitar at a late age. I think I started when I was 38. I'm 46 as of yesterday. So I wanted to learn guitar. So I started taking guitar lessons, and I learned the first G, D, and E chords pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I can play some music now. And I'm playing a few songs, most of them country, but I'm playing a few songs. And my guitar teacher says, okay, we're going to start doing diminished chords. And you're like, wait, there's more, you know?
I don't know. G, C, and D gives you like 80% of all pop music. And then you throw an A in there or an E in there, and then you know about everything.
Right. And then we're going to do secondary function, and we're going to do some ninth chords. And if you're not into this, that's fine. But you start realizing, man, I know a lot of music.
Right.
But it's not, I mean, it's another level to get to this. And that's a small little refinement on how you make that transition. Right. And every time I went to my guitar teacher, he's like, okay, Chris, now we're going to do this. I'm like, oh, you mean now there's scales? You mean there's scales too? But
right. So you were learning about what you didn't even know.
Yes. And I think image competition will do that.
I like that. To me, that is a good analogy, actually. Then so now hit me with moving forward this year. And I want to know about, because we talked about the educational piece. We talked about, you in the presidency this year with TPPA, but what about Cris Duncan and your photography business? So what does that look like moving forward this year into 2021?
Steady as she rolls. It's kind of our, we were so blessed. We had a few rough months last year.
Yep.
We had fewer sessions than we had last year. And I know you've heard that. I've heard this people on your show say this over and over, but we had one of our best last quarters we've had. I think if anything, at least for us, what COVID did is it let people know probably what was really important to them. And two, if it was some people had more financial hardship than others. I'm not trying to negate that at all. That's a serious concern for a lot of families. But those families or high school seniors or commercial clients that came to us, they're like, if we're going to do this, by God, we're going to do it right. And we're going all in. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of helped. That kind of showed us that, maybe we can start showing them what all in is and what really we can offer as a service or as a product or as an experience. Because before, and I'm not saying you didn't have this now, but before COVID, it was, hey, we're thinking about getting pictures. Tell us what you do.
Yeah.
Kind of more kicking the tires. And we felt this year people are like, we're going to do it. This is what we're going to do it right. And it wasn't coming in half-hearted. And I think that was probably a mind shift in the consumer. I know in my mind shifted as a consumer. Like if I'm going to spend this money, whether it be on, we did some house projects. If we're going to paint our house, we're going to get the best paint we can get. We're going to, I just want to make sure that if I'm going to put this money in at this point, at this time, it needs to be well worth the spend. And I think that's what we saw from a consumer.
So what sort of adjustments are you making then going into this year? Like knowing that that's what happened last year and you ended pretty solidly, all things considered. You're going into 2021 and you want to kind of, how did you put it? Like show them what you can do or show them what's best or show them the right way. what sort of things are you doing? What sort of adjustments are you making so that you're on that path moving forward?
I think personally, Deanna, I know, would have a much more detailed. That means she's the brains of our operation.
Sure. I get that.
I'm the muscles. She's the brain. So, but for me, I think I don't feel like I need to apologize for something that people don't know an apology is needed.
Huh.
And to me, it's like if you go to someone's house and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry about the laundry basket." Now you see the laundry basket. You probably may not have seen the laundry basket before.
Or if you did, you didn't care. Right.
Right. And now you're like, well, that's right. You should have cleaned up your laundry basket. And I would find myself doing that, like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot this, or, oh, I'm sorry, I'm running a little bit behind, or, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the back. And now I'm drawing attention to part of the experience that wasn't the best. Mm-hmm. And that's something I have to work on. It's like, don't apologize before it's this really hit me at Christmas when someone gives you a gift and say, "Oh, I have the gift receipt," and as they hand you the present, and you're like, "You're already telling me I'm not going to like it."
You're pre-qualifying this as something that I am not going to like.
Yes, and I think and there's honest apologies you need to say. I'm so sorry I was 30 minutes late. I had an issue with whatever. I think that I'm not talking about that type of thing. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry there's leaves on the floor, or I'm sorry there wasn't toilet paper. What? Oh, I don't know. It is. For
you might want to apologize for the toilet paper thing, though. I put that in the category that you should apologize for. I get it, though. I get it. The gift receipt, you have good analogies. The gift receipt is a really great analogy, like pre-qualifying parts of the experience that you're pointing out that you don't need to address.
No, not at all. And I think I found myself doing some of that more. And maybe it was because COVID and everybody's more timid. Sure. I don't know, but
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so,
but moving into 2021, you change your mindset. You focus on the positive more, or what does that look like regarding the experience with your clients then?
I'm really taking more of my own advice. As an educator, I tell my students to do these things a lot. And I'm like, well, I think I should be doing them more. And I will, and I do. And I'm not saying I don't do what I preach, but I'm saying sometimes, and I think it's the curse of knowledge.
Yeah, the curse of knowledge. Tell me about this curse of knowledge.
I think the curse of knowledge is we maybe know so much because we're doing it so long. And I don't mean that arrogant, but we kind of get used to what we do. Mm-hmm. And we kind of know our routine. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's just another thing. It's just another day at the office. Mm-hmm. But for our clients, it may be their first and only.
Right.
And for our clients, it may be their first or only time to experience this thing.
Yep.
And I think maybe that's where some of that apology comes in. It's like it's just no big deal. We take it for granted or whatever. And for them, it's like, dude, we've saved for this. We planned for this. They put all this energy and stress into it. And if we're kind of like,
Well, that's a matter of perspective too, right? Like you get to a point where it behooves you to kind of take yourself out of yourself and put yourself in your client's shoes. Right. Because you saying that, they've saved for this, they've planned for this. And on our end, it's just like, I got another session coming in. I got to do this, that, and the other thing. But to really stop and put yourself in their shoes and think, yeah, this is a really big deal to them. And maybe it is the first time, or maybe it is the only time that this is, or for some people, and this hits home sometimes, this could be the last time, right? Yes. And you find that out a lot of times later on, tragically, but then like the importance of that session and that experience hits home really hard. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that in the 20 years you've been doing this.
We have, and I think what I learned through our past years, and when I said earlier, when people came, they were all in, and they were even telling us, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times we had people say, we just need to do this. We put on our form, our lead form, why now? You need an updated headshot. The kids are so cute at this age. And one of them was finally getting this done. And that was, and almost every time, why are you doing this? Finally getting this done. It's our goal and we're finally doing it. And so I think hearing it from them kind of was a knife to me, like, oh, I need to treat this like I don't need to take this so habitual on my end and try to put myself into their experience. And so I think
check
moving forward,
a little bit. You got to check yourself a little bit, right?
So I think I want to be more intentional moving forward to not forgo their experience because of my routine.
Yes. Oh, wow. Good. Right. That was a good way to sum it up.
Good. Can I repeat it? I don't know what I said.
Forgo their experience from my routine. I like that a lot. All right. Now tell me this. You got this thing that you've mentioned.
Yes.
That you want to do.
Yes.
Should I be nervous?
No, I don't think you should be nervous. I
get a little nervous. I get a little nervous sometimes with this kind of stuff.
I don't think you should be nervous. Just came off virtual imaging. I taught a 3-day CPP course again. I shared this with them. I'll share this with my Texas school students. And almost anytime I even do a 1-hour webinar, I like to close with this. And I encourage all of my students, photographers I mentor or help or work with or have a relationship with, is to be a C+ student. And I don't mean that in the terms of A, B, C, or D.
Okay.
The C, it's not, don't think of that as a numerical grade, but the C is every day we have a choice. And we can take a positive choice or a negative choice. And so I compiled a list of 10 choices that we can probably make every day. And if we're a C+ student, we will choose the positive. And so C+ students choose to create rather than complain. I think anytime there's a problem, a real leader, a real professional will create a solution for that instead of just complain about it. C+ students are clear and not confused. Like I said, I'm preaching to myself. This is something I really need to to put more into practice coming in the next year. C+ students contribute more than they consume. You asked me at the top of the show, why do you want to do this? I'm like, because someone did it to me. I consumed a lot. I'm ready to contribute as much as I can to help others. And I hope that they take that and contribute, and they take that and contribute. And so we got a photography pyramid scheme that's blowing up the world. Right. I think a C+ student is compassionate and not condescending. They are content and not comparative. Comparisons make you comparisons will either make you feel better than someone else or worse than someone else. There's no middle ground. There's no middle ground.
Yeah, you never get to the point where you're like, you know what? We're the same. We're the exact same.
That's
you don't do that.
Only clone troopers in Star Wars were that way.
Right.
Only the,
right. You had to get a Star Wars reference in. I'm not surprised.
It's like we're the same person. But so I don't think it's being comparative, but I think it's okay to be curious and not complacent. What if I raised my prices? What if I went to Texas school? What if I entered image competition? A C+ student is courageous and not cowardice. They're going to make those hard decisions to grow. I used to, the quote just escaped me, but it's, you'll never exceed your potential by not making a hard decision. Something, it's escaped my brain, but hard decisions reveal your full potential. I think it's something like that.
Oh, well, that's a good one. And people can Google these things.
They can Google this. Yes. A C+ student is confident and not conceited. And I don't mean that not an arrogant way, but you're convinced and you're going to go forth on what you've set forth as a goal. and the tools and the knowledge you have at the time to be the best you can be with all you have information you have at the time. I think that's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to conquer and not concede. And I don't mean that as I want to rule the state or the city. I think it means that if you have a goal or a plan for you, you do whatever you can as long as it's ethical, moral, and legal to do that. You don't stab your friends in your back. You don't do anything illegal. But if it's moral, ethically, and legally to do, then I don't think there's anything that should stop you from achieving your goals for yourself personally.
As opposed to conceding or giving up.
Yes, correct.
Right.
And finally, I think a C+ student makes their decisions on their convictions and not the convenience of the moment. And that's the hard one. That's the trick.
Wow.
And that goes back to when we talked about if you have that umbrella for this is what our business culture is going to be, and an opportunity comes that doesn't fit with that, everyone knows this just doesn't feel right. But I really need the money now, or I really need this job, and you don't see it at the time, but you reap what you sow, and down the line that comes into being sometimes.
I'm impressed by what you just did there. I didn't realize that they were all going to be C words until about a third of the way in. And I was like, he's going to go C words every time.
Every time. And all of those, if you do a C+ and you take all those right choices, you've built yourself character.
Oh man.
And that's what people want. They want integrity and trust before they want your talent. Your talent might get them in the door. Your character and your integrity is what's going to keep them in the door. And it's going to keep them as a lifelong client and a lifelong relationship, or a friend or a mentor, or whatever that situation may be. That's what's going to keep them. Talent, because my pastor said this a few years ago, and it kind of brought me to the core. When you kind of think you're doing some good things and you think you're kind of a hot shot, and don't know
what you're talking about.
You're winning some awards, you're getting some recognition, you got some clients, you think you're pretty good. Yeah. And he said, talent will take you where character cannot sustain you. And you're like, And he gave an example of Lance Armstrong and Tiger Woods and Jim Baker. And the list goes on. And we probably know people in our community, or maybe even this industry, that have done that. But talent gets you so far, and it can get you to the top. But if you don't have all those other traits, the fall is pretty mighty and pretty hard. And so,
well,
that's
some
my
moments
goal.
Like that in my own life too.
Yes. And so that's something I'll need to be more intentional on, and have chosen to be more intentional on moving forward. And not just for photography, but with my marriage and my parenting and my friendships. And I'm sure there's days that I'm not going to do the best, and there's days that I'm going to knock it out of the park, and I choose to remember the good days.
C+, I like it. I like the C+. What do you call it? Is it the C+?
C+ student.
You want to be a C+ student.
Yes.
I like
it. C's get degrees.
That's right.
So, that's right.
I just have an associate's degree, but I got a few C's. Hey, well said, Mr. President. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
2021 is an interesting year. I'm gonna really look forward to recapping 2021. Right. I feel like we got to the point where we just couldn't wait for 2020 to be over with, no matter what was going on at the time. And now I feel like here we are at the beginning of 2021. And it's like, there's so much potential, I feel like, and hope, like, that we're staring right into right now. So I'm excited to see, 8, 9, 10 months from now, to be able to look back and to see how things really turned around in 2021. And I think that, I don't know. I think education is a big piece of that. I think the experiences in going out, and even if it's image competition or going to a school, or being involved, or the C+ student thing, I think you've laid out a lot of really great ways to really do the best you can for yourself and your family and your business in 2021. And I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, but the trick to all of this, it's you got to do it.
Yep.
You've got to do it. You've got to take that step out, you know.
Well, it's the choice. So you said that too.
Yeah.
I like that too, that piece too. You have to make the choice to do it.
Yep. So
with that said, I Texas schools is coming up at this point. It's happening. I'm really excited about that too. End of April 25th, right?
Yes. Sunday, April 25th through Friday, April 30th. So
what's the website?
White House has always been
we have a big presence at Texas School every year. It's a big deal.
White House is always.
What's the website for that?
TexasSchool.org. So make sure you put those two S's in there. TexasSchool.org.
The .org is the big one. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, brother. Hey, you have a great day, and thanks for joining me, and thanks for doing this again. It was a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Jed. Good to see you too. Best to Vicky and your family.
Thanks, brother. Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right. Right there. It's there somewhere.